Identifying types in JavaScript using the typeof operator is not consistent. Most things make sense, some things are reasonable, but the rest is just straight up confusion. So what am I talking about? In this short tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create your own identity resolver that can accurately identify any type. So stay tuned and remember to like and subscribe. So the typeof operator allows you to query the JavaScript type stored in your variable. It works great for types like strings and numbers, but partial for types like arrays, which it identifies as an object. This is reasonable, but it doesn't tell me the actual type. I don't know that I'm working with an array. So I could be working with an object. So they both say the same thing. So luckily, arrays have their own identity resolver. Meet Array.isArray. So with Array.isArray, I can pass it anything. If I give it a number, it will tell me false, saying that it's not an array. If I give it a string, also tells me it's false. And if I give it an object, it's false. However, if I provide it with an array, clearly shows me that it is an array. So with Array.isArray, I can identify arrays reliably. So what's up with null? Why is it an object? This causes more confusion than any other type. And lastly, how do I identify types like dates, which it also says is an object, and types like error? Or even my own custom types. So everything is an object in JavaScript, and it makes it confusing to separate out the specific object that you're looking for. So if you are looking for an array as opposed to a plain JavaScript object, or even a date object or an error object, there's a lot of confusion, and you have to end up writing a lot more extra code just being able to filter out the type that you're looking for. So my solution for this is to create a custom typeof helper that I can use to identify these types. So let's go ahead and do that. So this is going to take in the type. Should be any type. And the first thing that we want to go ahead and do here is to wrap this inside of a try-catch block, because we're going to be expecting errors to be thrown, and we want to be able to resolve those. So on every object, there is a constructor that we can use to access the name, and the name will tell you exactly what the name of your object is. So for this, I want to go ahead and return my type dot constructor dot name, and it's going to try to access constructor.name, and if it's not available, it's going to throw an error. And whenever I catch that error, I'm just going to return the actual type that was caught. So let's go ahead and try this out, see how this works. So if I go here and say typeof hello, we can see that's a string. And because we're accessing the name from the constructor, it's now going to be uppercased, but that shows you the actual difference. So let's go down the line here and say, what's the type of my number? 1. And we can see that's a number. And what's the type of my array? We see that's an array. Type of object is an object. So far we're having good clarity between the different types. We're seeing that we have a string and we have a number. And this is one of the areas where there were confusion when using the typeof. It was telling you object for both array and object. So we can see here now that we have a type of array and we have a type of object. So that would eliminate the need for Array.isArray when you're doing type checks in this context. Now, what would be the type of null? So type of null would still return an object. So this is where it breaks down, where we need to go and modify our function a bit. So whenever we have null or undefined, it's going to end up in our catch block because there is no constructor on null or undefined. So whenever we end up here, we just need to check if our object is null. So if our type is null, we're just going to return the string null. Otherwise, we're going to return type of type. So because null is an object, we want to separate that out further. So we're going to identify that it's null. And if it's null, we're just going to return back that it's null. Otherwise, we're going to return whatever its type would have been. And we can see that it fixes our issue here. So when we say what's the type of null, it tells us that it's null. And I can also test for undefined. So for undefined, we're seeing that it's telling us it's null. And it's because we have our type of here. So I want to go ahead and fix that. So now we can see type of null is null, and then type of undefined ends up being undefined. So now, what is the type of our date? We can see that's a date, right? Similarly for error, we see it's an error. And in the cases where we're trying to find out what's the type of our own custom classes, we can see that it returns you the name of your class. So just with this little extra code, we're able to provide a more consistent type of analyzer that will tell us or give us better information on what type we're working with, other than applying a bunch of additional checks whenever we need to identify something on the fly. There's one more thing I want to cover with this, and I know we come across this a lot, and that is to identify nan. So for this, if I was to say, what's the type of nan? It would tell me that it's a number, which again would cause some confusion, because if we try to parse something into a number and it failed, we're going to end up with nan. And then in our program, if we're trying to only operate with numbers and we want to separate out nans, now the type of operator is telling us that nan is a number. So let's go ahead and see how we would fix that. So we'd have to capture our type. Then we want to go ahead and return us identifying whenever we have a number. So we want to say when typeof type equal number, and we're going to use the isNan operator to check if the type is nan. So if it's a number and it's nan, we're going to return nan. Otherwise, we're going to return whatever type we identified. And that should fix the issue with nan. So we can see that we're identifying nan here. All right, so let's go ahead and clean this up a bit and see what we're getting from this functionality. So let's just put everything into perspective here. So we're able to identify strings as strings, numbers as numbers, arrays as arrays, objects as objects. We're no longer using the Array.isArray. That can be reserved for other functionalities. We have type of null being null, type of undefined being undefined, type of date showing as a date, type of error showing as an error, and then we have our custom class, and we are able to identify that custom class. Then we can also identify nans. So anyway guys, that's my rant on the type of operator in JavaScript, and this is my solution for providing a better implementation that allows me to reliably identify what type I'm working with without adding a whole bunch of additional checks. So if you like this video, remember to subscribe, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.